YouTubers, welcome to the Italian Extreme YouTube channel. In today's presentation I'm going to be talking about windscreens. Okay, what you're looking at right now is a big old windscreen that I made. I copied it from somebody else in YouTube, but I made it in a different fashion, and I'm going to explain you about that later. But for now, let me tell you why a windscreen. Well, when you go out there on your backpacking trips, you're exposed to the elements and they affect your cooking. They affect your other aspects of backpacking, but let's talk about cooking right now. When you're out there, the wind blows, and if it's cold, like you go backpacking like me in the fall and the colder months of the fall and the springs and the winter, then this affects you big time. Most people, what they do, let me take this out for now. Most people, what they do is to make a windscreen about that little to cover around the flames of the stove. Well, that's nice and all that, but in reality the wind is not affecting only the efficiency of your stove, but it's also affecting the efficiency of your pot. See, heat escapes from your pot also, and I've seen videos out there where people have to put their backpacking stoves full blast in order to cook in a hurry, and you know, it's a real nightmare to cook out there in the winter, especially in the winter when the wind is blowing. Now, that's why I came up with, I didn't come up with this idea, but I adopted this idea from somebody else and I made it in a different fashion, and I'm going to explain you about that now. Let me put this aside for a moment. Let me tell you what this is. What this is, well, it was an oven liner, just like this one. And this comes in a pack of 2, if you can tell, there are 2 there. I have not opened this pack to use it yet because I intend to use this for another purpose that will help my backpacking. Actually, I'm going to use it to see if I can make a dehydrator, food dehydrator. But that's what that was. And guess what? How much that cost me? I bought it at Walmart for a little more than $1, so it was like $1.49, something like that. It was not that expensive. The person who made it bought it at the $1 store, but I was there looking for it. They will sell it to you for only $1, and this one was a lot better, I'm saying. Well, the guy who made it, who's teaching how to make this, he was using only 1 liner, and I'm using 2 liners here. And the reason is I wanted for this to be really, really big, to go all the way around to my stove. What I did was to put them longwise, both of them, and join them together in the middle with glue. It's a glue that it's very efficient, very good. What I like about that glue is that it attaches things real firmly, real strong, and it remains, you know, with flexible. It's not hard, it doesn't glue hard, very flexible, and it's very useful in that sense. The other thing is, the guy who made this, who teaches how to make this, he folds it in the edges like that, like I did, but he puts a wire inside, connecting all the way around, making a big old frame. And I consider that totally unnecessary because this is pretty sturdy, and besides, it was going to make it, you know, heavier. You know how it is. When you go backpacking out there, you try to make your backpack the lightest possible, because chances are that you're going to be carrying all that, you know, up the hill. So anyway, my backpack used to be around the 70 pounds, but average out there, people's backpack is around the 45 pounds. My backpack nowadays is around the 28 pounds, including everything. Now, I explained you how I made it. What I have here in both sides, as you can tell, are these 2 long sticks here are 2 knitting needles. They're made out of aluminum. They're hollow. I cut off the heads, and the reason I use them is because they are very big, and it'll give me a chance to see this much here and here. That's how much I will drive through the ground when I'm using it. And obviously the advantage is that I can drive some of it into the ground, but not too much of it, and I can, let me show you an example of what I'm about to explain. I enclose it, I drive through the ground. When I consider it's done, or I want to, put my hands in there and work with it, with whatever I'm cooking, I detach this from the ground, put it aside, retach it on into the ground, work with it, and if I consider I have to close it again, I'll do it again. Now the other reason why I made it that big also is because it was going to be very useful for my other setup, which is the wood gasifier stove and the alcohol stove. I use these accessories for them, for those stoves. And then I put this around like that. I cook, and sometimes when I'm using my frying pan, I keep it somewhat open like that, and then I cook, and when I'm done cooking, well, I put everything away. Let me put this aside again. Okay, now let me talk about this particular stove, or any stove of this kind. This is an isopropane butane with a canister stove. They highly not recommend you to put any kind of windscreen around that canister, because heat starts building up around it, and it can explode. It's hazardous to put that in that fashion, surrounded like that, unless you are in a very cold winter, like it happened to me 2 winters ago. It was minus 10 degrees and the wind was blowing 79 miles an hour, and even though if I had this, it wouldn't have been a real nightmare to finish doing my cooking only like that. So I had to, we had to build a shelter with a tarp using a big rock that we found there on Grandfather Mountain as a wall, one of the walls. But if I would have had this, it would have been a lot better, I want to tell you. Well, I highly not recommend you to use it with this kind of stove, unless, I forgot to mention that before, unless you use it like that in half moon kind of shape. If you use it like that, no big deal. You block the wind from blowing on your stove. See, I'm covering 90%, like 90 or 95% of the pot, and 100% of whatever stove that you're using there. This is a very useful thing to do. Now, I have not weighted this. I don't know how much all this together is, but it doesn't feel very heavy. It probably feels like, I don't know, maybe 2.5 ounces, 3 ounces. I'm sorry. Something like that. You're probably thinking, well, Taino, that is not convenient. That's not for me because it's too much. It's too many gadgets, too many parts. Well, I always make things from the point of view of a visually impaired person. But to my surprise, some of my friends, they have seen my ideas, they have adopted them, they have copied them, and some of them use them. The other story of that is that some other people, I'm not going to say criticize me, but they don't find it attractive. Eventually they ask me to help them make the same thing, to use it. So it's not a big deal to have more parts. Now, how do I transport this? You're probably thinking, if I put this in my backpack, it's going to get all wrinkled up, I'm going to mess it up, and it's going to be no good. Oh, I forgot to mention something. These are paper clips, the same kind of paper clips that you use for pinching papers in the office. I find it really easy to work with, because they are not so so hard to work with. They bend easily, but they sturdy at the same time, and that's how I came up with this idea. See, I made it in a way that it fits snug, because I didn't want for this to be slipping up and down like that. And I started bending them here and there and forward and backwards and all kinds of ways, and I came up with that. Well, I like it a lot. I like the product. You know, the final product is very good. The way I transport this is as follows. Let me show you. I roll it up like this, and I put it in my Kakamobile or KK Mobile, and I'm referring to another video that I have about this. I put it inside, so I bring this anyway. Put it inside, everything. I close it. And that's it. That's how I transport it. Then I attach these to the outside of the back part of my backpack with this bungee ropes there. And that's how I transport it. You probably, if you don't have this, I mean, you can come up with some kind of other idea. If you can even fold it in several parts, and you can still use it. And you can also not use it at all and not having to use one. Well, to tell you the truth, in the past I've never used a windscreen before, but I was always suffering the consequences of not using one, which was, you know, my cooking experience was also, I mean, always slower than anybody else. So this is very useful, and I must say it's a very handsome kind of thing. I mean, when you look at it, it looks big, bulky. You probably say, this is not for me, tying extreme is crazy, it's loco de la cabeza. Well, that's what I do. Well, I hope you liked my presentation. I hope you take it in consideration. And like I always say, until next video, catch you later.